Good morning. I'm Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, and with me is St. Petersburg Police Chief Anthony Holloway. We're going to talk to you tonight about an officer-involved shooting that occurred by an undercover detective with the St. Petersburg Police Department. The information I'm going to give you is what we know now as preliminary information. As we initially know it, everything is subject to change. There's a lot of witnesses, there's video to be obtained, so it's a very active and fluid investigation, but we believe it's important that we get information out as soon as we can, and it's being given to you as accurately as we know it, but I can't stress enough that it's always subject to change. So what happened here this evening is that St. Petersburg Police Department detectives were conducting a surveillance of Tyron, Tyron Davis. He's a black male with a date of birth of 8/12/2001. He's got a pretty significant criminal history, served time in the Florida State prison system for burglary, other charges, was released last year. And he was a suspect in armed robberies that had occurred here, one on August 26th and the other on August 28th in the city of St. Petersburg, where two convenience stores were robbed at gunpoint, where the robber had two firearms, and in one case pistol whipped one of the employees in the robbery. The detectives had developed Davis as a suspect. They were conducting surveillance of him tonight and down here in St. Pete and South St. Pete. During the course of the surveillance, they lost contact with him, and while they were looking for him, another robbery happened, and that robbery occurred at the mobile station located on 49th Street at, I'll give you the address here, of 825 49th Street North is where that robbery happened. The suspect in that robbery matched the description, two guns, other characteristics of Davis, and so detectives began looking for him again. They found him just behind me here down at 17th Avenue South, and followed him to an alley that is just to the east of where we are, north of 17th Avenue. When he went into the alley, he pulled into a residence. The detectives in their undercover cars pulled in behind him. They were in the process of trying to stop him and had a plan to take him into custody. He pulled out. And as he pulled out, the vehicle was being driven by somebody else who we've identified as a female who was with him. And Davis leaned out the passenger window and leaned out from his waist up. So he was leaning out the window as the vehicle was fleeing, pointed his firearm at the officers, and he fired. One of the undercover detectives returned fire or fired at the car. We have rounds that are in the detective's car. One struck the right passenger side, the other struck the headlight of the car, and Davis continued to fire. If you look down here to the east, you'll see evidence placards in the street, and those are shell casings. So as he continued going eastbound, he went northbound here and continued east on the main thoroughfare, and he was firing as he was going eastbound. He went to a residence in the area of 10th Avenue South and 12th Street, where he hid some evidence that we were able to determine through the use of the helicopter. He then crashed into a pole there, and detectives took him into custody and arrested him. So that's what we know at this point. He was not hit by the detectives firing at him, and thankfully neither were the detectives hit. So we have an exchange of gunfire between the detectives doing the robbery surveillance and Davis. Davis is in custody. We're conducting interviews of all the detectives, the girl who was in the car, and collecting evidence. So that's what we know right now. That's where it is. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
What are you charging them with?
So we're going to sort that out. There'll be a series of charges, most likely attempted murder, could be an aggravated assault, most likely attempted murder. Most likely he'll be charged with robberies, a variety of charges. It's early at this point to tell you officially what the charges because it's so early in the investigation, but those are the possible and likely charges that he'll get booked into the county jail on later today. Anybody have anything else?
How many shots were fired? Or is that too early to?
So the detective fired two, but Davis, by all accounts, fired multiple rounds. Most likely he unloaded the magazine, and so there were multiple rounds fired. When I say multiple, I'd say from the witness statement so far, probably somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. I can't give you an exact round count because we're still in the process of processing the scene, collecting shell casings, and collecting all the evidence. But he was unloading that magazine at the officers.
How scary it is for an undercover officer to be in a situation where there's multiple rounds fired directly at them, and it seems as if it was a close proximity as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is what cops do, and try and get bad guys off the street who are in the community committing armed robberies. The guy's been in prison. He's been in prison. He just served a 3-year sentence. So they're dealing with what we would call a true bad guy, a real bad guy, and that bad guy obviously wanted to kill the cops. The cops returned fire or fired at him, and we're very thankful that the officers weren't hurt. But it's definitely, as you say, it's a scary situation for everybody. We're lucky that nobody else was hurt, but you got to get a bad guy off the street that's out there in the last few days conducting robberies where he has 2 guns in the robberies, and one of them he pistol whips a clerk, and he's continuing this in a sequence. So we need to get this bad guy off the street. St. Pete officers did a great job in identifying the suspect. Obviously they were right, conducting surveillance of him and out there doing their job, and fortunate that he's off the street and he's in custody. But yeah, it's a scary situation for everybody. Scary for the community that a guy like that is in the community doing these kind of robberies. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.